All right, so let's get right into it. We're going to explore how a poem, believe it or not, a 400-year-old poem written during a plague, might just be the perfect antidote to the loneliness so many of us feel today. And honestly, its message feels more urgent now than ever. You've heard it a million times, right? No man is an island. It's one of the most famous lines ever, from the poet John Donne. It's simple, it's powerful, and deep down it feels true. But let's be honest, does it actually feel true in our day-to-day lives? I mean, think about it. Between our screens, our insane schedules, and this constant pressure to be totally self-sufficient, it's so easy to feel completely adrift, like we actually are our own isolated islands. And that feeling, well, that's the core problem we're going to unpack today.
Yeah, and you know what? That feeling isn't an accident. It's a story we've been told. And that brings us right to our first section, what's called the island illusion. It's this pervasive, really modern idea that we're all meant to just go it alone.
The story we're sold goes something like this. Strength is independence. Freedom is total self-reliance. But the source material for this explainer calls that out for what it is, a myth, an illusion. And the great irony is that chasing this idea often leaves us feeling more fragile and disconnected than ever.
So if that's the illusion, how in the world do we counter it? Well, we're going to turn to a pretty unexpected source. It's a 400-year-old revelation, and to really get it, we need to take a little trip back in time.
Okay, so picture this. London, 1623. The city is just gripped by fear. It's living under the constant shadow of the plague. It is a world of isolation and loss, which, might sound a little too familiar given recent history. And right at the center of all this is the author, John Donne. And what's so crucial to understand is that he wasn't writing this from some comfortable academic distance. No way. He was in the thick of it. He had already lost his wife, several of his children, and he was just recovering from a fever that nearly killed him. This poem was forged in the absolute fire of real suffering.
And out of that crucible, he offers this incredible rebuttal to that whole island illusion. He says, no, we're not islands. We are each a piece of the continent, a part of the mainland. The whole point is that our very nature, our default state, is to be connected.
The sources call this a generous ontology. It sounds a bit academic, but it's a really beautiful idea. It just means that to be is to participate. Our existence isn't defined by what separates us, but by how we constantly mutually enrich one another's lives.
And you can really see that shift in perspective right here. On one side, you have the illusion, we're solitary islands. But on the other, Donne's reality, we're all just clods of earth, part of the same continent. The illusion says loss happens to other people. The reality, any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. That is a powerful shift.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing as poetry, but what if it's more than that? It turns out there's a deep, scientific reason these words still hit us so hard today. And that brings us to our next section, the biology of belonging.
Right? Why is it that when you hear this, it feels less like you're learning something new and more like you're remembering something you've always known? Well, the answer seems to be baked right into our own neurology.
Get this. Reading Donne's words literally does something to your brain. The calm, building rhythm of it, our pattern-seeking minds just love that. It can trigger the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and it lights up the exact neural circuits that are responsible for connection and empathy. It literally feels good and brings a kind of order to our fragmented thoughts. So the takeaway here is profound. We are not just poetically connected. We are biologically hardwired for the mainland. Our deepest, most unconscious self is literally yearning for this reunion with the whole.
So we know this idea holds up poetically and biologically, but what do we actually do with it? That brings us to our final section, an invitation to connect. How do we take this profound idea and actually start living it?
This, of course, is the poem's most famous conclusion, and for centuries, it's been heard as this grim, morbid reminder of our own mortality. But the source material suggests a radical and, frankly, a much more beautiful way to read it.
What if the bell isn't a warning about death at all? What if it's an invitation? A warm, affectionate call to stop standing on the sidelines and to fully participate in the grand, messy, beautiful project of being human. The bell rings to welcome you home.
So here's a challenge, a 24-hour experiment. First, just notice. When you hear about a stranger's joy or sorrow, let yourself feel it, just for a second, as if it's connected to you.
Second, act. Make that call you've been putting off. Really, truly listen to someone. And finally, shift. Try to move your mindset from one of productivity to one of simple presence. Because the final promise of this whole idea is that connecting with others doesn't diminish you. You don't get absorbed and disappear. It's the opposite. It's a glorious expansion. You become larger, more vital, more yourself. And that leaves us with one final provocative question. It's not about what others can do for you, but what you can offer. So, who will you be a continent for today?